Good morning, happy holidays, happy Thanksgiving, whatever you want to call it. BT Brate Podcast back at it again. Decided to go ahead and kind of do a bit of a surprise podcast today, since it is the season of being thankful and being humble and grateful and all those things. So I have a pretty solid amount of topics to get into. I was a little kind of deterred or delayed on wanting to do the podcast because some of the topics that I went into last week, they wanted to break off from the show when I was trying to get it all finished up. So I have those queued up and ready to talk about. I'm not going to talk about those first because I still stick to my general format, which is I give you the information about, sports, throw a little bit of techie talk if there's any, and then I go ahead and do the music as deemed necessary. So I'm going to, now since I don't have one of the topics saved as a link, well, I had it as a link, but I don't have it up anymore. I'll go ahead and talk about it. I don't really need to tab for it because it kind of is self-explanatory, but the Texas Longhorns football team is trying to let their coach go, basically. It's been in limbo as to whether it was going to happen or not, but it hasn't been solidified that it'll occur. And here's why. It was almost as though, and I'm gonna be very clear in saying this. Social media is very interesting, and here's why I make that assumption or give that impression. Whenever a coach or whenever someone gets information, normally they get it from word of mouth or from an actual source. Well, nowadays what occurs is, let's tell them, or let's break the announcement through Twitter, through Snapchat, through Facebook, whatever the case may be. Sometimes that can be a good thing. Most instances it's pretty horrendous because then a person has to find out news and then they're not sure what's going on because they gotta call the school or call the source and say, okay, what's the story all about, or what is this? What exactly is going on? So that's kind of the case right now with him. He coached last week, and he's probably what I feel like is going to happen is he's going to finish out the season and he'll coach, the remainder of the games, and then once the season is over, they'll let him go. They haven't really had a winning formula since he got there. I'll say it because it's the truth. I don't really put that on him, and the only reason I say that is because if you have a team or you have a person set up to run a team, there's not always going to be success involved, especially if you're not getting the top recruits as they're available. And that's kind of the case with Texas. Texas was a more known recruiting school, but thanks to Texas A&M, Alabama, a lot of SEC teams, Big 12 becoming more powerful, Baylor becoming more out of their comfort zone, it changed things a little bit regarding how how players pick to go to colleges. So I just wanted to at least address that and present that conversation about, where they are with their coach madness. So I'll talk about that story, and then I'll talk about the other story, because if you were listening to my podcast last week, I made the mention of Jurgen Klinsmann, who was now the coach of the USA men's national soccer team. Well, he was relieved of his duties, which I saw coming. Bottom line, I saw it coming. I feel it's like I feel bad, but I don't feel bad. And the only reason I say that I feel bad, but I don't feel bad stance is because you always know when it comes to coaches, you have to do those things that keeps your job stable. And the last, after 2014, their medal run was pretty decent. I mean, they kind of got, I think they got to like 4th or 5th place, but beyond that, it really wasn't any drive or any push to like go to that next level of trying to like really show that, hey, we're America. I mean, we understand other countries are dominant in soccer, but you got to at least be in the running, and they haven't been in the running in a while. And with him being at the front of things, it's not been the most phenomenal output. So that went the way it did. They let him go, and we move forward. So fantasy league update. I'm just going through week by week, just trying to get through and get over the hump. So that's the best thing I can say in regards to my fantasy league madness, as I call it. Let me look at one thing before I continue, because I want to make sure. I mean, I've been kind of picking and putting players in. Lately, I'm almost to the point now where I'm like, if I bench or start anybody, I'm not even concerned, because I'm kind of, I ain't gonna say I'm out of the running per se, but it's more or less like last week. Now, I guess I'll break this down, because this is kind of the key element of why I'm in my feelings about it a little bit. I started the Packers defense against Washington thinking, oh, they should be pretty good. Well, they went negative, and I had Pittsburgh's bench sitting. Turns out that, as most times I always do, got that one wrong. So it just kind of was like better for me to just almost accept it as not being in existence, and just kind of leaving it as is. So I did that this week. Like I said, now it's just kind of me playing along, because usually by a certain point you're waiting for playoffs. I'm like, I'm not even close to playoff hunt. I think I'm still in last place. I had won a match a couple of weeks ago, and it's been kind of just an uphill battle since. So that kind of carries me over, as I always do, with the weekly picks. Little did pretty good. Actually surprised myself this week with how I picked. Well, I'm sorry, not this week, but this past week. Despite not picking anyone for the Carolina-New Orleans game, still came out with a pretty solid record. Ended up being 66, 54, and 2 for overall. For the week, I was 9-3. So 9-3 is pretty decent. And I mean, I lost some were out of control. The Cardinals, that was kind of up in the air. Texans was me being stubborn. So I took the win for that one. If I'm not mistaken, the Cardinals were against, I want to say Seattle. I think it was Seattle. I was kind of on the Titans bandwagon thinking they would probably do something, but to my dismay, they showed up and showed out in losing. So, yeah, the Titans played the Colts, and Arizona played the Vikings. And the reason I was going for Arizona, because you never know, you really don't know how the Vikings are going to look. So it's been kind of an odd scenario. So random fun fact, because they mentioned this before, this is the first time since 1993, I believe, that all of the teams who are playing in the Thanksgiving games are actually have a 500 record or better. So that's making picks a little easier to some degree, but not necessarily. So of course I'll do my team at its point of schedule, because I could do that one first, but I'm doing this one pulling a little different, but it'll work out. You all know how I do. So the Thanksgiving games today, Minnesota, Detroit. Even though it's in Detroit, I'm taking Minnesota. Washington at Dallas. Dallas has been on a pretty good run. I'm going to go into be a little bit more detail with them this podcast, and I'll go over that in a moment. Dallas should pull that victory off easily. It's in Dallas. Pittsburgh and Indy at the Colts. Taking Pittsburgh. Arizona at, I'm sorry, I feel like I missed the game. So it's 3 games. Okay, I'm not awake. I'll get it together, y'all. Y'all bear with me. Pittsburgh and Indiana, like I said, Pittsburgh. Going into the Sunday games, I'll go ahead and do Carolina, even though it's at 4. Carolina at Oakland. I want to pick Carolina so bad, and I'm wanting to stay loyal because I should. But I think Oakland's just been playing good football. So, I mean, Oakland should be able to pull that game off. Arizona at Atlanta. It's in Atlanta, so I'll pick Arizona, believe it or not. Cincy at Baltimore. AJ Green's out. I'll talk about that a little bit. Gonna take the shocker and pick Baltimore. Jacksonville at Buffalo. Buffalo should have that game pretty well handled. Tennessee at Chicago, going Tennessee. Giants at Browns, even though it's in Cleveland, taking the Giants. The Bolts against the Texans. Texans should pull that game off with no problem. San Francisco at Miami, going to go Miami on that one. Rams and Saints, believe it or not, I'm picking the Saints. Seattle Seahawks and Buccaneers, gonna go ahead and pick Seattle. New England Patriots Jets, going Pats. New England. Kansas City Denver. Kansas City should be able to get that game on Sunday for the late night game. And for Monday Night Football, Green Bay at Philadelphia. Green Bay has not shown me that I can pick them yet because they've been having their moments. So I will be going Philadelphia for that game. I'm going to check something very briefly because last week we had some interesting matchups. And one of them that I'm going to talk about because it came and went and it's relevant to the podcast is, I don't know if any of you knew, but Jared Goff started last week. And the article that they put for the story just made it worse because now I'm like, I almost forgot what was going on. His first pass he threw against the Dolphins went to a training camp roommate. So I guess someone on his team caught his pass. He had a pretty decent game. It wasn't anything astonishing. He was 17 for 31, 134 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. This was more or less, you can tell it was a low, I ain't gonna say low scoring, but it was more of a defense-oriented game. The Dolphins scored 2 touchdowns. The Rams' single touchdown, a lone touchdown came from their running back, Todd Gurley. He rushed 4 times for 11 yards. It wasn't really anything like phenomenal or amazing. Longest rush was 6, and yeah, that was kind of the overall story with that. So going back, I mentioned about AJ Green. I mentioned the Bengals. So they got hit with the injury bug from different angles, and they were able to confirm because initially AJ Green, the story was kind of, okay. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about this because it's important with sports and with news. Anytime you get a story or you read, like, articles come in left and right. Anyone who has a phone, if you have Bleacher Report, a story will get sent to you. You read it, you say, okay, here's what's going on. You get that story, and that's kind of what you solidify yourself in believing until a few minutes later, okay, we've changed the update or we changed the story, here's what's going on. And that's basically what happened. They initially ruled it or looked at it as AJ Green has a serious injury, possibly could be out for the season or likely to be out for the remainder of the season. Turned around a couple of days later or a couple of hours later and said, injury not as serious, call it a strain, small tear, doesn't need surgery, so he'll be out for a couple of weeks. They're looking at he should be back by week 15 or 16 when they play against the Cleveland Browns. So that works in their favor. And that was just a story I wanted to share because it was kind of like, I like stories like this only because you always get like the initial story and say, hey, here's what happened. Like with Klinsman, when they talked about his story, it was initially presented as, okay, it's talks that they may let him go. Well, before I could even read or say that in the podcast, a few days later, Jurgen Klinsman released from the USA men's team. So stories can kind of like literally pop up now and be gone the next day. So it is what it is. And I'm sorry, I want to make sure I give this information because I don't like being bad on providing names for stories. The coach currently, quote unquote, for the Texas Longhorns is Charlie Strong. So he's right now trying to fight coach for your life, I guess is the best way to say it. So I'm doing this as a special story. I got a couple of listeners who, or a listener. I got a few people who listen as well. I'm not like pushing anybody aside or neglecting any listeners at all. All listens matter. But he mentioned to me about talking about the Lakers, which kind of then made me think about another team, which I'll get into in a moment, who's actually playing today that I did pick for their match, and I'll talk about that in a second as well. But currently, believe it or not, if the playoffs were to start today in the NBA, the LA Lakers would actually have the number 8 seed. They're currently 500. When I initially did this story, or was initially looking to do this story, LA had a pretty good run going, and they still do. I mean, they've won. You know, they lost some tough ones. They lost to the Spurs. I mean, the Spurs. You already know. They lost to Chicago, so it's interesting. They've already gotten their Chicago's already gotten that road game out of the way, which is a good deal, big thing for them. They beat Oklahoma City, and earlier in the week, or earlier at actually one of their earlier games, they beat the Golden State Warriors, which was huge. I mean, they beat them by 20. So they've won some games here and there. They had a very tension-based. I've said this on a couple of podcasts back, and I'm looking to stick to it. I think I kind of have my next team I'm going to talk about. I have an eye on their record now. We'll see if it stays where it is, and it could be a good talk to see what would change, or what, the new dynamic involving that team. So I'll make sure as you hear the pin click, that I talk about them, because it's been just an unexpected story with this team. But yeah, the Lakers, I mean, post Kobe, it's actually been pretty well. I mean, Nick Young had the interesting play of the year, as he always does. He was there was a closing play where they had the ball kind of making rotation, and it was supposed to go to Lou Williams at the top of the key. Well, Nick Young ran in between the play and just ran to the line, got the ball. It was almost like it was an interception, but it was, of course, in football and basketball, it's a steal. So he got the steal and just jacked up a 3, and it went in. So it was one of those, okay, it's a broken play, but the play worked, so we're not going to act like it didn't happen. But it was understood, and it was fun, and the important part of it, or the key element to it, was that they won. So just want to talk about that. My other story, jumping back to football, involves, and anyone who knows me, even when we played them last year for Thanksgiving, I don't like talking about the Cowboys. I'm going to say that, and I'm going to stand behind it. I had to accept some weeks where I chose against the Cowboys, and now it's okay. They've lost. They've only lost one game, and that was literally the first game of the season against the Giants. But since then, they've literally they've turned it on and just played. Even when they played against the Redskins, I mean, that was a close game. Majority of their games have been pretty much in their favor. The Steelers game, they almost gave that away. It's been just a good show to watch. I've said this to a lot of my friends or colleagues who are Dallas fans. Winning and doing all of this and not going to the Super Bowl, like getting to the playoffs, they'll get there. That's not a problem. They likely could clinch. I mean, it would have to be some outrageous scenario to happen for them not to clinch. But winning the division and being the best team in the NFC, those things they'll have handled, because there's really not much else going on for them. Random fact or random information: Carolina been division leader for 3 years straight. They won the NFC South Championship 3 years straight. This year we're in last place. I always talk about this with our division, because it's a bipolar division. Because one year the team that's on top runs the show, and then out of nowhere that team is then placed in the position of they go from top to bottom. It happens every time, bottom to top. In between, mix around, mix and match. It never fails. So I wanted to mention that as well. So anybody who's a Dallas fan, props, shouts to you, cheers to you, and everything. So those are my that's all my sports information. That's everything I have about a lot that has been going on with the world of the NFL and with basketball. Now I have some music. Now, first, the first tab I have, or the first story I have set up for this is kind of interesting because Jeezy went back to his original roots. Young Jeezy. He did his album is called Trap or Die 3. It came out a couple of weeks ago, and the site that I'm on gave the CD a 6. Now, I've learned something with when you have sites give musical reviews or musical feedback or whatever, they grade on an aggressive curve. So sometimes it could be they may prefer this type of music or this style of music or whatever the case may be, which kind of can either be an advantage or a disadvantage to the artist. So I'm going to put their review aside and personally say that the album actually is pretty good. It's a confirmation and a showing that he's going back to let me do what worked and let me get, my message out to my listeners who have been with me back during my my old school music. Not old school, but my, when I was really rapping and not just, okay, I'm trying to be commercial and be in the know. So that, in that regards, I mean, the album, like I said, it's not bad. It's pretty decent. I enjoy listening to it. It definitely gets to spin. It definitely got to spin for me, and I see me listening to that a couple of times from time to time. So going from that album and then going to the Alicia Keys album, these were the albums that I was supposed to have last week, and I kept getting frustrated every time my podcast would kind of clam out, and I'm like, no, I need this to work. So, Alicia Keys album, again, the site that I'm on, they rated it a 6.5. And the titling just tells everything because it just is like, okay, maybe I'm just missing it. On her new album, Alicia Keys inhabits the personae of multiple characters but still doesn't tell us much about herself. There's nothing we need to know about Alicia Keys other than she making music. Like, sometimes we take things and we want it to be what we want it to be instead of just accepting she's an artist, and if she wants to get her fans to enjoy her music, then they'll enjoy it by listening to what she's singing or talking about. This album I like because I personally like the album, and I have a more in-depth view of it because, again, she went back to, hey, I remember when I was Alicia Keys doing I Keep on Falling In and Out of Love With You. Like, for me, I'm okay with that. And I only say that I'm okay with that solely because it's got the thrill and the attention of it could be played and I can actually listen to it with a high replay value. Most albums or most music, if it doesn't have a high replay value, I'm not interested, and I'm honest with that. And that kind of goes into my next album, my last album that I did review for, which they gave it a high rating, and I think it's because it's here, but I guess it's one of those we've been waiting. So Tribe Called Quest brought out their 6th album, was considered to be final album, and it's called We Got It From Here. Thank you for your service. And when I say that I actually am a fan of listening to albums that I can go through from start to finish, this is one of those albums. He has some music with he has a lot of artists referenced and added into the mix. I'm sorry, the group does. Hearing Busta Rhymes get back into the studio, that was a blessing for me because, as I mention to people all the time, die hard, aggro, legit Busta Rhymes fan. Not gonna lie, not gonna deny it. So that's kind of my review for the album for Tribe Called Quest. I've listened to it and it gets my approval by far. Those are albums that I would suggest to recommend if you want to stream or listen to. By all means, buy it, pick it up. You won't regret the purchase. So those are my musical topics, and it's kind of coincidental because my last topic for the day that also got left out from yesterday, but we're not going to get hurt by it too much, is the latest purchase of the, well, I went ahead and purchased the Amazon Echo, who has a lovely assistant known as Alexa. Okay, good. I'm glad it didn't turn on just now because I was a little concerned. It's a pretty nifty speaker to have, and I didn't know how I would feel about it when I first got it, but now that I've had it for a while, I actually enjoy using Alexa. Maybe not. I'm gonna try. You're gonna hear it at some point, and it's gonna just be the most unexpected thing. But nonetheless, everyone wants this to be perfect, but what a lot of people fail to realize is that the Echo is pretty new. I mean, it's been out about a year, but it still has that ability to grow in what it can do. Because a lot of people just use it, and they use it for basic or simple things. Like, for instance, as far as using it to play music, like at a party, I think it's great. If you play it at its max sound and any Android device, and I emphasize this very heavily. And this is a techie 101 for anybody who's listening, because I want people to understand the difference in listening and sound quality with Apple devices and Android devices. Android devices have a wider sound base as far as how much it will allow to be played. Meaning, if you turn your volume up and it says, okay, you're at your max, you can turn it up a little bit more, and they'll say, we recommend that you don't play music at this loud of at this high of a sound, because it could affect hearing and things of that sort. So those factors do come into play, but Android they handled it just like anybody else would. So that's the Android side. With Apple or with the iPhone, it's a little different. Any Apple device, whatever the volume is set at for the device itself, that's as high as the device is going to go. So there's a give and take to that, and here's what I mean. Most devices that are, for instance, with the Echo, if you have the Echo connected through Bluetooth, you can turn the volume up and down on your phone with no problem, and then you can go to the Echo itself and turn the volume up and down as you seem necessary. Which, I mean, that's not a bad deal. But there are other speakers or other Bluetooth devices where if you turn the volume up on the speaker, it's going to turn the volume up or down on the Apple device as well. Some people don't like that, but it's also a way of controlling to not have a person say, hey, let's see if we can turn the music up to its maximum capacity and blow everything away and blow out your bass and your subwoofers and all that, and you got to get new technology and gadgets. So I wanted to give that story and that explanation. A lot of people probably like, I don't understand what any of that means, and that's okay. Nothing is wrong with that. But to go into the breakdown of the Amazon Echo, I personally think it's a good tool. I'm still learning how to use mine. I've gotten it set up. Setting it up wasn't a problem. Setting it up to use it as a speaker hasn't been an issue. Honestly speaking, I use mine as an alarm. And the alarm that I've had before has been great, but the alarm using the Echo actually is better for me. Because it wakes you up, but it doesn't wake you up with this annoyance like, oh my gosh, like let me get it. This one is like the music comes on, you can hear it subtly playing, but then suddenly it kind of gets you up like, all right, I'm up. And then you just reach up. It's a button on the side, you press it, and it's off. But you can talk to it, you can tell it to add things to your wish list. If you have Pandora, you can link accounts through musical sources to play. Of course, it's if you have Amazon Prime, and this is the nicest way to say it, if you have Amazon Prime, it's perfect because it's going to literally do everything you need it to do and then some. So those are the ins and outs of the Amazon Echo. I'm on CNET's website. They gave the good, they give a lot of good things. Amazon's voice activated smart home speaker is undeniably futuristic, but it's also practical and accessible. With a rapidly growing slate of features and integrations, it's easy to get excited about Echo's potential. Now, this was written this was written as a fall of this year, so it's pretty recent. The bad, Echo's sound quality is uneven at times, with weak bass at high volumes. The growing list of skills in the Alexa app could also benefit from better organization. Which, like anything, when you go into the app, and I'll explain this and then I'll go ahead and cap it off. The app helps simplify what you're not able to verbally tell Alexa. And that's okay. I think that you can do more with it if you know how to mix them together. Meaning, if you had an Amazon Prime account, Amazon Prime would give you the better, more diverse option, because then it's, okay, I have access to music, so if it's any songs that I want to hear, I can just say it and it'll start playing it. Which, I'm all for that. On the other side, you have it as a simple option of, hey, let me play a playlist on my Pandora, and it'll pull whatever playlist you have. You could set it up as a Bluetooth device. If you have it already paired to your phone, then once you connect that option under your Bluetooth settings, it automatically connects and it works as a Bluetooth speaker. So, I mean, those small things for me, I'm good with. But I also like the other features behind the scenes. Like, if you want to add things to your wish list, anything that you verbally say that you want to add to your wish list, it'll add it or give options for it. And you just can go on Amazon and then kind of look around and say, oh, okay, here's what I set up, and work it out from there. So I'm with it. I'm enjoying it, and it's working for me. But, everyone's different, so you got to do what's in your best interest. So that's my biased but unbiased opinion about the Amazon Echo. In a couple of days, and I'm hoping it comes in because I've been kind of late. I'm hoping, and I'm truly wanting to make sure it's the Series 1 version. If it is, then I'll be even more elated. But I have the Apple Watch coming, so I'll be looking to kind of mess around with that and give a bit of an overview of what I like, what I don't like, what I'm still learning, where I'm confused, things of that sort. So I'm working to get more things in the mix and getting it to be more user friendly and more enjoyable to my listeners, because I know a lot of you all come for sports, some come for techie, some come for music, and some just come to support. And any and every bit of that support helps. So that'll be my cap off and my closeout for today's podcast. Thanks to everyone for listening. If you are celebrating Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving to you. If you are going out to get plates and meet up with people, be safe, be respectful. If you don't feel like being bothered with nobody, that's cool too. Just make it simple, make the most out of it, and don't stress over what you can't control. So with that note, I'll cap it off. As always, follow Instagram and Twitter, Brate Podcast. I am on Snapchat at Brate82, starting to get that branded and shared again because I use it kind of sporadically. So until next time, you all take it easy. Hopefully my picks will come out good this week. Fantasy League, I'm over it, which is no surprise. But I see y'all when I see y'all. Take it easy. Peace.